welcome to another episode of the UX All Minds podcast. And I'm really happy today to be able to invite to the show Tatjana. Tatjana is a very experienced designer. She's had many various roles, and she's also a mentor as well. I don't know if you follow her on LinkedIn, but she shares a lot of good resources and has a lot of good things to say. So I'm really happy to get her on today. So sit back, enjoy, and here we go. Okay, Tatjana, so thank you for joining us today and for giving your time to share your advice and your thoughts with me and also our listeners today. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really good to be here with you on your podcast.
Thank you. Okay, so would you like to give maybe a bit of an introduction? So maybe about what you're doing now, your current role, and maybe also how you got into the UX field or the field that you're working in?
Sure. So now I'm working as a senior UX designer in Finland. I'm working in-house in a product company that's digitalizing the real estate industry. So we have an AI product that helps you to get a floor plan by scanning the property. And then, of course, all the accompanying data that you need from the property. So it's super interesting, having in mind that actually my formal education lies in architecture. So I finished architecture and I worked a little bit in New York as an architect before, after which I decided to switch to UX. So it was an interesting journey. It happened around 10 years ago, I think, almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm a self-taught UX designer, and I started by working in the software industry. I had that luck that I did good bunch of networking at a time when I didn't even know the value of it. So that kind of brought me into the software company, and I had that amazing opportunity to learn by doing. So I started when UX wasn't still such a mainstream profession, I would say. So it was a tiny bit easier and difficult at the same time because there hasn't been so many resources online. So it was more difficult to find information, but at the same time you were not overwhelmed. So I would say at the beginning I started by learning a lot about the entrepreneurship and testing your products early on, and kind of a lot of interaction with users from the day one. And I think that helped me to jump into the field rather quickly and kind of do it well enough, let's say, for the beginner, even at that point. And then ever since, I've kind of gone through all the different phases, from being in-house designer to freelancing, leading teams, mentoring people. So I kind of tried it all. I can't say what's my favorite. I think I love all these different roles. But right now I'm focusing more on the design strategies. So how the whole customer journey looks like, and then how can different departments within the company do their best to make a seamless journey for the users. So we have so we decrease the drop-off percentages, at every step, basically.
Oh wow, that's good. Excellent. So you're probably less so on the actual hands-on design, but more on kind of how the product grows or how the design kind of moves forward, rather than being literally hands-on doing the design. Have I understood that correctly?
Well, actually, at the moment I'm doing both. So I'm kind of working at the same time, on the high-level decisions and exploring the big picture, and then coming down to details and then designing the actual screens, because I'm the only designer in the company. At the moment. So. I think we were planning to extend the team, but then the whole this last year happened.
Alone.
So but I would say I don't mind. I love it, and of course the team is aware that it's only one me, and as much as I can do. But then I don't know how to code. I never knew. So at least I never get into that part. So I'm kind of trying to stay in my field, and then like whenever I get an assignment, try to investigate like why are we doing that, why haven't worked in the past, what we are trying to achieve, and then kind of come down to the actual screens.
Yeah. Cool. That's excellent. So it's like another unconventional way to enter the UX field. Like I always like asking that question because I've heard some like really off the wall answers. Like I was talking to people who've come from theatre, like you say, from, if I understood correctly, from engineering, and then architecture, engineering kind of background, and then eventually made your way over to UX. So it's always interesting to find, because obviously UX being a field that is growing and also new in the sense of, as its title of UX, so like everyone's journey to get into the field is always quite interesting. So I always like to ask that question. Maybe sticking with that, what skills do you feel you've been able to bring from, like, for example, your background from architecture that you're able to now use in your current role now and in UX as a discipline?
Well, I think at my university, we were kind of thrown into fire from the day one. Like we had to forget the whole, previous living and knowledge about the world that we had, and the way how we learned it in the traditional school, that we get these lessons, and then we're just supposed to replicate them for the tests and to get the grades. But then at my university, we didn't have the books. We didn't have like ever one source of truth that you can stick to, but your assignment was from the very beginning, like first to find the right resources that you want to use to deepen your knowledge, and then to decide like what is the problem you're solving, what is your goal. And then you were also like the way how we were getting grades in the end was that the professors were taking our problem and then how far we got into solving it. So it was like so subjective, like didn't rely on any like outside rules of how we should do, but basically just on our own vision of what is the problem that we are solving and how we want to address it. So I think that was the crucial thing that actually prepared me for the UX design field, because I learned like I have this analytical mindset that I'm always questioning things and always like trying to understand how does something work and why does it work like that, and then how others feel about it. So I think that's kind of something that comes to me naturally, and then that university really helped me kind of push that forward. And I think that's like the most important skill, like in my opinion, for all the designers that want to go more into that strategic direction. So want to do more like product design and UX design rather than just like visual part. So I would say that was the most important. But then also like the thing that how they trained us to there's like so much information out there, and then you cannot be like a professional in building bridges and then building like 5 million villas at the same time. So you have to kind of like profile something. So I
very
think
multifaceted.
Yeah. So I think like another great thing that I learned there was to, when you have this like abundance of resources, like how do you pull out what's important to you at a given moment, and then not be overflooded. It's difficult, I have to say. Like I really feel with all the junior designers like trying to break in the field, it's like so hard. Like if you don't have a guidance, like it's so easy to get lost. There's like so much like abundance of information out there. So I think that's also a skill that has to be trained.
And maybe staying with that as well, like how can a new designer or a junior who's maybe just got their first maybe internship role but they're still learning, or someone looking to enter the field, how can you verify if the resource that you're looking at is a valid resource? Because there is so much information out there, and it's something that I also struggled with a bit, because like especially on LinkedIn you see a lot of people that are saying, oh, be careful what you look at, it's not always the best thing, not everyone knows what they're talking about. So how can you understand if this resource that you're looking at now is valid and that is something that can help you grow as a designer and also grow your skill sets in the right way?
I would say that take anything that you read online with a pinch of salt, meaning that always use your brain. to distinguish like how much, not even like how much some information is valuable, or some method or device is actually right, like if I can even say so, but more like how, given the problem that you are trying to solve and the project that you have at your hands, like how do you use something that you read to adjust to your specific needs. And I can say from my experience that I never use like any of the well-known methods, the way they are explained in theory. And especially because UX design is such a young profession, so we borrowed these practices from different fields, like a lot of that from the way how PhD students, for example, do research.
Yeah.
So you can't tell like, okay, this is the way to do, like who says that? Who are the people who brought like all these theories to our practice and said like this is how it's supposed to be done? Like, no, you take the idea of a method and then like you think within your constraints that you have, and the target audience that you are serving, how can you adjust that to serve you well?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I made like a collage of those processes. Like whenever I'm doing something, like it's never like completely true to how the method is explained, like in the books.
Yeah. No,
I always make adjustments based on my own needs and the resources that I have available.
Yeah. And I think, there's no hard and fast rule to like the exact process to follow, also because like you say, the constraints are always different. Also, the resources you have at your disposal might be different. So you might have to change how you do things. And yet also the field that you're designing or researching in can also affect the methodologies and the kind of the process that you use. Because maybe if it's a newer field, or you're in a startup working on a product that maybe is a new product to the field and has never really been like tested or designed or researched before, that obviously like your pool of resources might be a lot less than maybe someone who's working in a more established field, or a field that's more established in the world. So that's cool. Maybe looking more at maybe the challenges that you're facing. So what would you say in your whole career? So this can be maybe when you were just starting out, maybe now. What is your biggest challenge that you have faced or you're facing now?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the biggest challenge, for me, and then like for most of the fellow designers that I talked to throughout my career, was that when we would come to maybe to a company where design maturity is not on such a high level, but I think even in those ones that like it would have been on a high level, but the company would be so much in processes and rules that they just forgot how to be creative, and they are kind of, even though they are agile, they're more moving into this waterfall system. So I would say that it's always trying to make space for my work and convincing whoever I need to convince what I believe to be true. And that, I would say, is the biggest catch as well, because if you are starting off as a young designer and you don't have that much experience and you don't have the confidence, and the confidence is the biggest problem. And then you are waiting for someone to tell you if you are doing the things right, or to tell you how you should be doing that. Well, I had again like that weird situation. I don't know whether to call it lucky or unlucky, that I didn't have the actual mentor when I was just starting off, but I just had like a bunch of people I was collaborating with who were in different fields, so like engineers, product managers, salespeople. So there was no real superior to me, who I would look up to, and I would kind of like take whatever they say, like without thinking about it with like trying to filter it out and see if I agree or not. So that was in a way like so I didn't have whom to learn from, but at the same time I kind of had more space to practice the self-esteem, and then to collaborate with people from different departments and learn from them and their specific fields, but at the same time develop my critical thinking as a designer, and then be the expert in the space, even if I didn't have that many years of experience. So I would say that's the biggest challenge, like to kind of allow yourself to have your own ideas and your own way of thinking, and to allow yourself to be wrong, So when there are like established processes and you just don't fit there, like you just think, okay, this is more like a burden than, than like helping me do my work. Like you kind of have to fight for your position and for your resources, or even for like, to find a way around like how to get what you need for your work. And when I say that, I think mainly about the guerrilla research. Like I call it guerrilla research, but I think I'm referring mainly to like secondary research or desk research, as PhD students call it. So like find a way how you can get to something that it's not provided to you at your position. And that's something that I had to do very often. Like maybe throughout my career, at some point it either stopped or I'm not noticing it anymore. Maybe I'm just not so good at making space for my. So that it just comes like automatically. But I would say that was like the biggest challenge I had in my career, because like first it's like you are doubting yourself a lot, and then also it's the work that you don't want to do. Like you were hired and paid to design, and you don't want to spend time convincing people to allow you to do design work.
That can be a shock to the system. So you think you'll spend your whole day just designing stuff and all that, but then obviously in certain positions, you need to convince people to go ahead with the design. So I can imagine that is obviously I'm not designing now, I'm a researcher, so I've not experienced that side of things specifically, but I can imagine that is a challenge that you can face. And maybe thinking about like before you properly got your first role, you briefly touched on it then, that you didn't have maybe the superiors, so you didn't really have that mentor at the beginning. What would you have said to yourself? So imagine you had like little Tatiana, sat here now. What would you say to her? Because just thinking about when I kind of entered the field, like the idea that I had of being a UX researcher or entering the UX field and how the job would look and how it would feel and like how my day-to-day role would be was in the end very different to what I thought it would be before. So like a few things were a bit of a shock to the system, and maybe some of the skills and the things I had to do on a day-to-day basis were completely different to what I thought I would have to do. And maybe the skills that I thought I would need to use, I'm not using, and vice versa. So if you had little Tatiana sat here now, what would you say to her, and obviously in turn say to other young designers or researchers that are looking for their first role and maybe have an idea of what they would like and how that might differ in the future?
That's a really good question, actually. I think I was worrying too much for not a good reason at that point. Like, when you are, especially in the first 3 years of my career, I think like I was thinking that I'm not doing enough, I'm not learning fast enough, I don't have anything so amazing to show in my portfolio, I haven't worked for like a big name company, I don't have some projects that are used by millions to show, like I can't say in my portfolio that whatever I did with my design efforts increased the whatever metric by 120% or something. Those like nice. Regular things that you see like all over the internet. So I would say that I was impatient, and I was worried. I was worried that I'm not moving fast enough. Maybe I was blaming the absence of a mentor at that point for that. But like now when I look back, I think it was just the insecurity for my own work and the decisions that I was making, because I had no one to clap me on my back and say, well done, Tatiana, like you're doing this the right way. And now looking back, I could say that that's like such a silly thinking, because you're never gonna get
that's never gonna happen.
That's never gonna that's like, well, fortunate or unfortunate, because how would you, even if you were told that you're doing everything perfectly, and I can say like in that way I'm really lucky now that I have people who are giving me like enough credits and praising my work and really make me feel good at the position where I work.
That's important.
Yes, it's really important. But I would say it's not the same way as I was thinking about it was I was a younger designer, that I need someone to tell me that I'm moving in the right direction, because even if you are told that, how can you be sure that the person telling you that praise
That's true as well.
knows enough knows enough about you and where you are heading
Yeah.
to know that you are on the right path. Like you don't know that yourself. So I would say that like the advice I could give to someone who is just starting off is like, take it slowly. It's like, it is terrifying because there's so much out there and you're thinking like, okay, like if I'm not moving fast enough, like the others are going to be in front of me and they're going to get higher than I want. But I would say like, just take the chances, take the risks, like, try to learn as much as you can. And it's fine if you are wrong, because when you are the most wrong, that's when you are advancing the most.
Yeah, that's true, because then you learn.
Yes.
You learn by doing and obviously by making mistakes. So yeah, also you're never going to be the finished product before your first job. It's impossible. You're never going to be that perfect designer, perfect researcher. And I think sometimes, like you've mentioned, like sometimes you can be so kind of focused on making sure your portfolio is perfect and you come across as like knowing all the methodologies, all the design principles, and you get so focused on that you kind of forget also about how you're presenting yourself, and you forget that at the stage of your career where you're at, you're not going to be perfect, all of those things, and you don't have to show that. Obviously it's difficult because there's a lot of competition out there, and you do want to like show that you're the best designer in your category or your kind of step of your career. So that can sometimes be a pressure. How do you feel you can kind of overcome that as well? Because there is a lot of competition. So how would you say is the best way to, or what is the best focus when you're trying to enter the field, maybe in an interview or on your portfolio? What should you focus on more because of that competition? Should it be your skill sets and what you know as like a foundation, or should it be something else like, I don't know, a soft skill in your personality, for example?
Well, the worst thing you can do is to focus on the competition. And I spoke recently to some designers who are, like changing their career, or they are like unsure what they want to do. And they tell me like, oh, there's like so much stuff there on LinkedIn. And I get completely, like they spend hours like just reading comments of other people. But first thing you need to know is that like everything you find online is written and created. Well, most of the things, I would say like maybe around 90% is written to get the attention and to get the likes. And because like if you get the attention, like you put your content in front of the more people, you're reaching your goal faster. Exactly. So I think even those people who have like huge followers bases and and sound very smart on the internet, like they at times get lost in who they really are and what is their strongest, like what is their superpower. But they're trying to imitate what's popular on the internet. And it easily happens. Like it happens to me as well. Like I see how other people are writing, and then for example I see that 2 weeks later my post, the way how I wrote my post, looks different than how I wrote it 2 weeks ago. And then I'm like, hey, what's happening here? Like what is the authentically me, and what is someone else? Because I think that's the biggest mistake we all can make, is pay too much attention on what other people are doing, how they live their lives, what kind of decisions they're making. And it's like so easy to forget that we only see like a tiny piece of a puzzle. Like we don't see the rest of it. Like we don't see how much energy they have on a daily level. It's very different if they are alone or they have 5 screaming kids at home, like not only demanding their attention and energy, but also you kind of, well, you're kind of expected to spend some time with your kids. Like they after all, they grow so fast. So you have to take like a whole, like we can't know what's all out there and what are all the things that make you a human. So I think when thinking about our own career, like we need to kind of zoom out and see our personality in whole, like what makes us happy, what do we like to do the most, what, when we are presented with some task, like where do we shine, and what is something we hate doing. Because if you hate doing something, you most likely are not going to do it well. Exactly. Then, like you said, there were people who switched from the theater to UX design. Like if there are other skills or other industries that you like and you have some skills in, like you should try to combine that, because UX is needed in so many different industries. And then if you manage to kind of connect like your UX design skills and then like knowledge about like some industry, that's going to put you higher on top of the list than others. So I think more like taking this inside look, like who are you as a person and what are your superpowers, not measuring your skills to the superpowers of other people, because those ones that you chose to look up to, or like that competition that you are mentioning, maybe you don't have any of the skills that these people are the best known for.
Exactly.
And it doesn't make sense to waste your time like trying to beat them, because once, even if you get to the position to be so successful as they are, you won't be happy, because you'll be doing things that you never wanted to do.
Exactly. And I think if we were all the same, as in we were all the same designers, all the same researchers with the same skills, the same superpowers, as you call them, then the world will be a boring place. So it's good that you focus on what you bring to the table, what your superpower is, what your skill set is, because we all, like I said before, we all bring different things to the table, and our different skills, our different viewpoints and different experiences that we bring makes, if you're in your design team, makes the final product and the final design even better, because someone else who has, like you mentioned before, someone that comes from theatre, or someone that comes from education like me, or someone that comes from engineering, architect, all of these different things, we all have different skills, we all have different experiences, and all of that adds to an amazing design at the end of the day, or we hope an amazing design or an amazing research project. So that's a really nice point, and I'm happy you brought that out, because sometimes you can be so focused on just skills or methodologies or design processes, all of that you just want to perfect those, and you forget that it's not just about that and knowing those things. It's also about looking inside and what can I offer, and not underselling yourself as well, even if you are at the early stage of your career. So no, thank you for discussing that and sharing that experience. Maybe we stop here, because I don't want to take too much of your time, because I know you're very busy. So thank you for giving 25 minutes of your time today. I really appreciate it, because you do have a lot of experience. So I'm happy that I'm able to share what you said today.
Well, thank you. It was very pleasant talking to you. And congratulations also on your work achievements. I'm very happy for you. Like, I know I was following your path, and I know how much you kind of push it through. Like, you didn't stop at the obstacles. You just kept going, and I'm really happy to hear that you're finally at the place where you wanted to be.
Thank you. It means a lot. It means a lot to hear that. And that's kind of what I'm doing now with the podcast. Because at the time it was difficult, and there was a lot of obstacles, and it took a long time, probably more than I expected at the beginning. So now that I'm in this position, I want to help others were in the same position that I was, and if I can provide a platform for others to give that advice and to help, or give just inspiration and ideas to overcome those obstacles, and also maybe just to keep going and hear kind of other people that like you mentioned before, that you see them on Instagram or social media and they look amazing, and they are amazing as well, but that they've also been through that process as well, and that they do also have insecurities, and maybe they do have, even now that they're in those positions, still have doubts and still have difficulties that they have to overcome. So it's also nice to hear that, and also comforting when you are in that early stage and you're facing every day those feelings of, am I good enough? Can I do this? And so I wanted to provide that platform. So thank you. And thank you for helping me provide them.
Sure. I think it's really nice what you're doing for the community, and I'm sure there will be a lot of people appreciating that.
Thank you, Tatiana. And thank you for coming on, and maybe in the future I'll get you back on, maybe for part 2.
Thanks. Have a lovely day, and everyone who's listening.
Cool. Thank you. again, a big thank you to Tatiana for her time in sharing that advice. There's a lot of nuggets there for all of you listeners. So again, thank you to Tatiana, and I'm sure we'll get her back on in the future. So thank you again for listening. Obviously, like, share. Let's try and get these episodes out there so as many of you new UXers early on in your career can get access to this advice and resources. So we're on Spotify, Amazon Music, everywhere where you listen to your podcast. So thank you again, and stay tuned for the next episodes of the UXR Minds podcast.